Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Green Awakening series, a series that we have created so that all the like-minded people who know or don't know one another come together and speak about all the same things that they're working on. And so far I have actually invited a friend of mine who I did my undergrad with, and then somebody that I came to know through the farmers' protest movement. And again, today I invite another friend who I did my undergrad with, and she's working on a World Bank project on energy efficiency and conservation. And she has a vast experience, a very brief one, but a very vast one in terms of working with the development organizations. She's currently, as I said, working with World Bank, but also has worked with all the big names from Oxfam to many other United Nations agencies. So let us not waste any more time. Thank you, Anusha, for joining us, and welcome to the Green Awakening series.
Assalamu alaikum, Fazia. Very good to see you, and so pleased to be part of this Green Awakening series.
No, thank
And
you.
so glad to be talking today.
To do this. I mean, it's always an honor. So, Anusha, I've given a brief introduction of you, but I think what I missed right now is I really liked the title of your master's degree, Masters in Sustainable Technology. So I think there might be quite a few students who will be joining us watching this later. I think I want you to explain your journey into sustainability and how it evolved from when we were doing environmental sciences together to now this person that you've become who's working on energy efficiency. Tell us a very brief intro of
Sure, I'll briefly go through my career path. As you know, Fazia, we started together. We started this journey together from our bachelor's in environmental sciences. And that's where we were like little environmentalists, young environmentalists. And that was the phase when we were, fully motivated and fully pushed to be pursuing this field for in the longer run and become, the pioneers of change. And probably we were the second batch of Fatma University who was doing environmental sciences at that time. So I feel so proud that we are really the pioneers in real terms. Soon after Fatma Jana, I started working for SDPI, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, where I also got a chance to work for climate change department for some time, as well as I worked on energy efficiency. There were a couple of projects around that. Then later on, I joined United Nations International Labour Organization. That's where that was the point when the floods came in Pakistan, and those were the humongous floods. And that was the time when ILO was investing in small and medium projects. And the program that I joined was called Non-Farm Livelihood. That's where I further learned about, quite a few traits of sustainable development and how we can make our systems more sustainable in Pakistan in the context of a developing country. Then later on, I left for Canada, and that's where as soon as I reached there, I landed a scholarship program by the Canadian government, and that was called Pathways to Sustainability. So sustainability basically become an integral part of my profile from day one, I would say. So in that particular larger program, there were a couple of certificates inside there, including the leadership in energy and environmental design. So energy is also part of my portfolio from a very long time, as well as project management and a few things around technical jargons of environment, sustainability, and climate change. That was called occupation-specific language training. So after I finished this major program, I joined Greenpeace Canada. And Greenpeace guys are, as you know, you have been to UK, and you must know that in Europe also, around North America, Greenpeace guys are like so mobile. They are so hyper in doing things which relate to environment and climate and sustainability. So I worked on their nuclear campaign, and when I was still there, we ended up closing down 3 major nuclear plants in Canada at that time, because nuclear energy is not sustainable. And then we also worked on paper-related products, for example, paper packaging, which was being used by KFC. So I still remember we protested so many times in front of the KFC restaurants that you should stop using these papers, these cutting down trees and the things which are causing deforestation. And that's where we got them to have the FSC certified paper only for making the paper packaging products. Then I also got a chance to work on the Oceans campaign, which was around the Arctic Ocean. And it was for, if you know about the cloverleaf tuna fish, the cloverleaf company which produces tuna fish. So the tuna fish species, which was being used by cloverleaf, that was getting extinct, or that was rather vulnerable at that time. So that campaign was around the wildlife, the aquatic wildlife, which we use, that we consume. We need to be conscious about what we are consuming to make it more sustainable in the longer run, so that we don't lose the species. So there are quite a few great experiences that I gained from Greenpeace Canada. And then later on, when I returned back from Canada, I started working for ICRA University, and I was associated with their faculty as well as admissions. That's where I also, in between got a chance to work on the Environment Club, and as well as some itsy bitsy stuff on the curriculum around environment. So that was again another very soul revision kind of experience. Like, you are associated with the education sector right now, so you must relate with this as well. The students come up with such amazing ideas, and they have like such great brainstorming sessions with you, that you further get motivated to work in the field that you are already working on. Then from there, having too much of sustainability and energy around me, I decided to take my master's in sustainable technology, and I left for Sweden. That's where I finished my master's, and I took my thesis in climate change adaptation. And when I was taking this particular thesis, my professor, my thesis supervisor, who was also a PhD in climate change, he told me that, Anusha, you know what you have chosen is something like so so unique at this point, because there is so much less discussion on climate change adaptation in particular. And if you want to make climate change talks more sustainable, you need to know that what are the areas which need adaptation more than mitigation. And
True.
I took Pakistan as my region, target region, and I got to know that in Pakistan, we are so I would say unlucky that we don't have the understanding of what we need or what we desire. Because in Pakistan, mitigation would be the last thing that we should be thinking about. But as the talk would pan out, we'll talk more about this. And adaptation is something which should be on our top priority, because we are not the ones who are causing climate change. We are the ones who are bearing the brunt of it. So we need to have the techniques and technologies and tactics to deal with what is happening to us, not what we can cause or what we might have caused. So this is where I stand at this point. So as soon as I finished my master's and I was coming back, I got this offer from the World Bank, and that was again on energy. so this project was with the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority. It's called NECA right now. Previously, it was called e-Karwan. It just got switched to NECA 4 years ago, and now this particular department, previously it was reporting to Ministry of Environment, and then it was reporting to climate change for a certain time, and now it is reporting to Ministry of Energy and the Power Division. Basically, I was associated with the project, which was around capacity building. So here once again, I got a lot of chance to work on sustainability of energy efficiency, energy conservation, needs, priorities, things around that. So that's how I became what I am right now. This is where I stand. Yeah.
I'm such incredible journeys, Anusha. I just, I always think that, of course, I get to interact with so many people I do not know. And one of the motivation behind doing this was that there are actually so many people I know who've done incredible stuff who I haven't been in touch with. And you know, this is giving me a chance to bring back all the people I know, and the incredible work that they've been doing that even I don't know about. So
Yep.
I hope people who follow us will follow your pathway and understand, whether students or professionals would understand, you know, how journeys evolve into this field, and how
Sure.
you go from broad to specific to specific to broad, like how it's a continuous learning process. But you've also given me a few ideas for questions. For example, this changing names of institutions, changing reporting organizations. I'm sure we'll do it at some point
Sure.
later. For someone
Sure.
who doesn't know what climate change adaptation funds are, what is she referring to? Is it something that comes from the body? What is the amount we are talking about? What are the scales you're talking about? For someone who doesn't know all of this, can you like briefly explain
Hmm.
what actually you mean when you say climate
Hmm.
adaptation funds?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about climate change adaptation funds, we need to understand the first thing first, which is the funding around climate change is coming to the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries. Climate change funding is not as much prevalent around the developed nations because they're already conscious, they're already working, at the individual level to mitigate or to adapt to climate. They rather have to mitigate, not really adapt to it. But for people like us who are bearing the brunt of climate change in the form of floods, in the form of frequent weather changes, in the form of extreme weather changes, we are the ones who face damages. So when any country or any community face damages, they are the ones who would need funds to, reestablish their systems, to resist any further damages. So, in order to help these communities and these countries and people, the agencies which are sitting in at the international levels, for example, the World Bank, for example, the United Nations, for example, the Global Environmental Fund, Green Environmental Fund, Green Climate Fund, sorry, GCF. These are the big funding agencies, and these are like not many. They are like two or three. And these particular agencies have certain systems of accreditation. So they only provide the funds at the national level to countries like Pakistan to to those agencies who are accredited to receive those funds. And
Right.
so far in Pakistan, they are only the UN agencies who are accredited because they meet the certain criteria which have been set up by the World Bank, set up by the GCF. Only the UN agencies meet those criteria, and then the funds get allocated to the UN agencies. Once the funds come to UN agencies have the right to either use those funds by themselves and start with development projects, or they have the right to coordinate or or rather join hands with the government of Pakistan to design certain programs and projects and then allocate those funds to government of Pakistan. But over the passage of time, I would say we are so unlucky in this matter that the policy which should drive the path of this funding and ensure that this funding is going to the right people and the right situations and the right projects, these policies are not stringent at all. If we just look at the climate change policy of Pakistan that we have right now, it is totally around the mitigation process. And mitigation is something which is not the priority for a country like Pakistan. Mitigation is the priority of the countries who are the producers, who are the causing factors behind climate change. For example, India. For example, China. For example, America. Pakistan is the country who has been bearing the brunt. But the climate change policy of Pakistan is not resonating with what is the need of Pakistan. So if the most important fundamental factor, your policy is not stringent, your policy is not aligned with your needs, then how would you ensure that the funding that you are receiving is actually going in the right dimension?
Yeah.
This is one aspect. The second aspect is this, that we have a question of scales. The question of scales refers to the levels of hierarchies of the regulators. For example, when the funding is received from an international agency, it goes to certain ministries, for example, climate change ministry, for example, energy ministry, depending upon what the fund is for. At the ministerial level, the funds which are trickling down from the ministries to the provinces, from provinces to the regions, to the municipalities, to the communities, to the local levels, there is a disconnect. The disconnect is this, that what I need, sitting, for example, if I'm in Lahore right now, sitting in Lahore, wherever I am based, if I see certain things around me which I think should get the funding for climate change adaptation, this is my need. But the person sitting at the Ministry of Climate Change does not know what my need is. And that person is never going to come to me and ask me, Anusha, what is your need? Where do you want to invest this fund? Do you want to build your house? Do you want to build a dam? Do you want to, work on the infrastructure of the city? Nobody is going to ask me that. Then how would you ensure, or the funding agency or the government would ensure, that whatever the funding that has been received by Pakistan is actually going in the right dimension? So, excuse me. Again, the policy around that should be, modified. The policy should address the very minute levels also. The policy should align all the things in a certain way. That, for example, if I'm sitting at the community level, I should have access to the municipality. I should have access. For example, if I live in Islamabad, I should have an access to CDA. Whenever I go to the CDA office, I should get a chance to speak with the right person, and I should get a chance to explain what my needs are. But we have so much hierarchical issues running in the country right now that, you don't even have access to the right people to talk to. Then how would you just say that the funds which are coming are actually going in the right direction? So this is basically the discussion that I have been working on during my thesis as well. And this is a discussion that I would like to, discuss further during today's session also.
Wonderful. I mean, you really bring it down to that exact point that is true for everything in this country, Anusha, that we don't have access to information. When I went abroad, the fact that any money that was allocated to Oxford, we used to have a distribution of the money that was allocated, for example, to build a road. They would say this much money has gone in HR, this much money has gone in infrastructure. All of it was so discreet. And I wasn't used to it. I wouldn't digest it. I was like, how can you give your citizen, an ordinary person from anywhere in the world, so much information, and not like, I did not even have to go somewhere. It was all available on the internet. So any question I had on the wastewater treatment infrastructure, on the money that it uses, it was all available online. Whereas in Pakistan, no, even if I know the right people, there is no guarantee to the fact that I would get access to information on anything. They will either say we can't disclose it, even though it's a public agency, and all the information that remains public agency is public property. But yet it's always kept hidden. So I think now mentioned your thesis, and if you want to sort of re-emphasize on the thesis question, and then the topic that we have for today for on the scaling it up. If you want to go deep down on, I think now's the time.
My thesis actually had like 4 different areas, but today I'm just focusing on one. The other area was priorities of adaptation. Then I also discussed actors of adaptation. Then there was another. So this is the most important one that we should start with. Now, this particular thing further, I would say, when we talk about the policies around the funding, where should the funding go? This is the question. It's a huge question, that where should the funding go? When we talk about this, we come down to another aspect, which is about the soft adaptation and the hard adaptation. Soft adaptation is basically how your funding is allocated for research work, for development work, how you basically analyze, you basically get down to the results that what you require. So basically, in soft adaptation, we talk about managing policies, making policies, implementing policies, doing regulations around policies, you know. And in hard adaptation, we talk about technology, technical stuff, you know, on the ground, infrastructural changes. These are all hard adaptations. So again, I would go back to my research that when I was talking with certain climate change experts from Pakistan, I actually went down to like 20 to 25 different agencies and different respondents who were working for some major organizations in Pakistan. I got to know that people have various views. People are not aligned on these views as well. Some people think that policy should be the first thing that needs to be sorted out. Policy should be the first thing that needs to be sorted out in terms of implementation and regulation. Yes, we made a policy. Then who is going to ensure that this policy is going to be implemented somewhere? Who is going to ensure that everybody is going to work around the policy? For example, if the policy says that in the education sector, climate change should be discussed as part of the curriculum, who is going to ensure that this will happen? Just like we discussed before, and you mentioned that also, that I had been working with the schools and the educational institutions for my current World Bank's assignment also. We were about to launch a campaign before the COVID came in and everything got stopped. That we were about to collect the head of departments from all the major leading universities who are working on sciences. We were about to get head of departments of all those university departments which were talking even a little bit about environment or sustainability, and have them on the same platform and discuss with them that what can we do to ensure that you include climate change talk or climate change as part of your curriculum, even if it's just one research paper, even if it's just one guest lecture, but just do it, just do it. And then we were going to talk to the federal board, and we were going to talk with different university boards, whatever they have, to ensure, make it a regulation, make it mandatory for your that particular department that we are hitting, that they should have climate change as part of their curriculum. So this is how things work basically for soft adaptation. We have to ensure, we have to regulate it, we have to channel it, we have to bring the things, incorporate the things into the system and put them in black and white if we really want them to work. Similarly, when it comes down to the regulations, let's suppose we have been talking for a very long time about the transport sector and the smoke emissions from vehicles. So I suppose now, as it became part of the regulation that you cannot have a vehicle which is emitting smoke on the roads, until that time, I don't know how many tons of carbon dioxide has already been released in the atmosphere. But because it became a regulation and the people were being impeached for that, there were penalties being fined on them, then only people got to know. Sorry to say, it's a human nature. Until and unless you have, this force of a striking hammer on your head, you will not work like that. So this is how we have to ensure that, all the policies around climate change adaptation, which are being established, they need to be enforced in a certain way. And then the next phase would be implementing the technology. So according to many respondents that I spoke with, they said that Pakistan has, too many policies already. And we also have a lot of technology. We are not behind anyone. We have technology and we have policy and we have the brains, but we don't have the right strategy. We don't have the right strategists. This is the only issue. And even if we have them, nobody listens to them. So that's very unfortunate. We cannot, I would say we are, even if we say that we are a developing country, I would say we are better than the developed countries. We have better mental capacity, we have better education, we have better hands-on experience of doing every single thing. But the only thing is that the driving factors, government has so many other things to do that they don't want to think about sustainability. Everybody has a vested interest. Same goes for the levels of hierarchy. The government, the national government is thinking something else. The private sectors, for example, they are just working on their corporate stuff and they have certain other things to do, you know. Then talking about what you say, if you talk about the local levels, provincial levels, the chief minister sitting at the provincial level does not resonate with the mindset of the prime minister. Well, I can't say in the current situation because the prime minister and chief minister in Punjab are quite aligned, but I
Yeah.
think it had been quite different in the past. So this is where the disconnect exists.
Right.
And then there was a third school of thought which said that policy should enable the technology and technology should enable the policy.
Policy.
So we should work in the combination, you know. So that's where we stand. We need to assess that what is our need and how to ensure climate change adaptation and how to reach the grassroots level.
Yeah. So it
So
always comes.
yes,
Anusha, so many points that I definitely want you to emphasize more on. But before I come back to the issues that you identified and the suggestions that you would like to give, can you also talk about your current project, your current affiliation, and when you meet these students, when you meet the women for the energy efficiency and conservation project, do you see hope? Are you happy with how things are going? Do you see any change in the past few years that you've worked in Pakistan in different capacities? What's the outlook?
yeah. I would say if we talk about the younger generations in Pakistan, they're really motivated, Dr. Fawzi. I would say they're really, really motivated. They want to be the drivers of change. They want to do a lot for Pakistan. They want to learn and they want to come back to Pakistan. You know, people like myself, I would love to stay in my country and work for my country. But as a matter of fact, but as soon as we get back here, we get a backlash. Just like I said, there is a lot of disconnect. You know, you don't get to meet the right people. I would just narrate a simple thing. You know, I won't name the person, but that person was director of Environmental Protection Agency in Islamabad back in 2014 when I came back from Canada. And I went to see him, and I was like, sir, I just got back from Canada and I want to be working in the Pakistani system. And he went on like, why did you even come back from Canada? I have two daughters and I have sent them to US. I don't think you should stay in Pakistan. I don't think Pakistan is a place for you. You know, when we have people sitting with this kind of a mindset, how can we say that our younger generations are going to get any sort of motivation? But at the same time, I think there are certain drivers of change who just don't care about anything. I know many people from our university also who are working for solar systems in Pakistan right now. If you remember Anam Rathod, there are quite a few other people that
Yes.
we know, and they don't care about what government wants. They don't care about what people around them want, what societies are looking at. Want to do it. They just want to be driving the change, and I think that is very important. The attitude is very important. And with the students, there are more and more students, flooding in Pakistan who are coming with the degrees of sustainable with environmental degrees. Even I think there are the Punjab University is offering a degree in climate change also. I suppose now right now. So the things are evolving. People are looking at stuff which is around climate change or sustainability or environment. But again, the policy, I would say, we should have the policies to incorporate these brilliant minds into the system that we have right now. We should have quotas for, I would say, we have quotas for everything in Pakistan, but we don't have quotas for intelligent people to, just get it. There should be an atmosphere of competition and an atmosphere of merit where the best climate change scientists or best sustainability professionals should come forward, and they should be given incentives to create or to come up with programs and project ideas which they can be implementing in Pakistan. And for example, I have a very close friend who is heading the Pakistan chapter for Accountability Lab. I'm not sure if you have come across that or not. But the Accountability Lab in Pakistan is basically a project of America. Their headquarters are in Washington, D.C., but they have their Pakistan office in Islamabad. And the idea of the entire organization is this, that you come up with ideas which are around corruption, and that could be of any kind of corruption. For example, deforestation. For example, timber mafia. For example, electricity stealth. So many different kinds of environmental things which are around corruption. So you can come up with those ideas, but then you become a little bit creative. You connect those ideas, the mitigation of these things with certain creative ideas. You just float, a 2-pager or a 3-pager concept note of what you want to do, and then you get a seed funding for that. And the seed fund, by using that seed funding, which starts from I think around 1 lakh rupee to over like 10 or 15 lakh rupees, depending upon what project idea you have. And then, you can just take it up as your own individual project, and you can implement it. And then you can become, a very, leading member of the sustainability drive in Pakistan by doing something that you really want to do. So yes, the mindsets are evolving. The thing is this, that we need to have our government and our politicians and our policymakers in particular, I would say, to sit down with you and listen to you. They just don't want to be, coming down to you as your dictators. Dictatorship is not something which we should, have at this point of time. For example, when I was working for this World Bank project, we had Mr. Gohar. I'm forgetting the name, but he's special assistant to Prime Minister on energy. He came to our office one day, and more than what he spoke, we were the ones who were speaking, and I really loved his attitude. He listened to every single person on the panel, and he was like, being special advisor to Prime Minister, it is my responsibility that I take your ideas forward. And he was very receptive. So I liked his attitude. And this is the attitude that we expect from all our, policymakers. And that's where we stand.
Yeah. Exactly. And I just resonate with you on the fact that how discouraging the environment is for young people, for young professionals who come back. And it's not just experts in any other field, it's academia also. Like when you come back in academia, even they're also waiting for us to leave as well. Like literally all of my colleagues are waiting for me. They either ask me, when are you going back? Or they ask me, why don't you at least get the citizenship of country so that you know that you have a way out? And I say, come on, like I came back to serve this country, and every other person I meet who says, when are you going back? What are you doing here? You don't deserve to be here. You deserve to be at a better place. And you're like, how about I make this a better place? But it's also true that it's very suffocating and difficult to raise a place to the level that doesn't want to be raised, or to raise a country to the level that generally doesn't care about a lot of these things. But also there are, like you said, individuals who drive you, right? There are also a lot of my colleagues here who are always there, who always want to support you, who always want to encourage you to do more. And I think for young people, sometimes respect and encouragement is all that they need. Of course, financial stability is also something that we are dreaming of. But right now, I think the encouragement is all that matters. And interesting how the story that you shared again is of a good listener who's going to represent you and your ideas at the highest of levels. Exactly. So I think it shows the ethics or the ethical framework that we have in our head. But you mentioned policies again, and do you want to talk about the issues in policies, the gaps in policies one more time? Do you want to emphasize on it a little more?
Yeah, I think the major gap in our policy is just that the policy is just not around what we need. The policy talks about mitigation, and we need adaptation. I think this is the largest gap that we have in the policy. So the first thing first is the policy needs to be revised. As far as I know, there was something going on around the policy already at the Climate Change Ministry. But yeah, there is another very important factor that I would like to reveal here. And, it's again very interesting that when I was talking to a number of experts, every time I interviewed, even if that was some program director or deputy country director level of that expert. After giving their reviews, they would always tell me, please do not share our names. This information is very confidential. Please don't share our names. Please don't reveal our identities in your. So I was like, don't just worry about that. But at least I know who was talking about. Very important factor that I think very few people know that climate change policy of Pakistan was written with the funds provided by the United Nations Development Program. So how do you even expect that the climate change policy of Pakistan is going to talk about Pakistan? It's not going to talk about Pakistan. It's going to talk about what UNDP expects us to do. So the same goes for the provincial policies. I think the provincial policy which talks about climate change was developed with the funding provided by another international, probably GAZ or somebody like that. I'm forgetting the name, but it was another international agency. So this is something which was very heartbreaking. Now, the international funding agencies, they only build the policies around their agency's agenda. If their agenda is to invest in, let's suppose, making dams, even if Pakistan does not need dams, they are still going to build dams. And regardless of what we need, they would just address their own agenda. If their policy says that we need internationally, they think that there is a need to plant maybe a certain kind of a tree species, and in Pakistan that tree species is not good for us, they would still plant that species because that's their international agency's agenda. So they would just follow that one. It was very interesting and it was very heartbreaking for me to know. However, at the same time, I was also told that sometimes the international funding agencies do not go with the agendas or with the mindsets of the government of Pakistan, because the government does not even have a record, a proper record of various happenings in the country. So due to the lack of records, the government does not even have a way forward. Unless I know what happened in my country in the past 30 years, for example, in a certain city, for example, even if I talk about Lahore, if I don't know what is the climate situation in Lahore for the past 30 years, how would I be able to make a next 5 years or 10 years action plan on climate change adaptation in Lahore? So the funding agency would just not rely upon me. And funding agency does not want to waste their money either. So what they end up doing is, without having a further ado, they would just follow their own agenda, regardless of what is the requirement in the Lahore city. They would say that as long as you don't have a record for your own city, then it doesn't matter to us. We'll just do what we want to do. So. So this is another, there are so many loopholes. There are so many loopholes when we talk about, the climate, the funding that is being received in Pakistan in terms of climate change, and it's really not reaching the levels or the areas where it is supposed to be reaching.
Yeah.
So I think these are the biggest loopholes that we face right now.
So, Anusha, how do you suggest we solve it? Like, how can we take it to the grassroots level? What can we change? What were the recommendations, key recommendations? Is there any example, is there any good example that you could think of where at least one fund went to the right people, to the grassroots, and action was taken that you were really proud of?
Dr. Fauzi, I would say that with reference to the government, I think there is nothing on the top of my mind that I could really quote. But with reference to the private sector, I would say I would like to quote one of my very dear friend's project. He's working for a project called Solar for Her, and the project is around implementing solar panels in the schools, in the girls' schools, and he has taken those projects to the remote areas. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, even in Punjab, in Sindh especially. So it's an individual effort, and he has got his team around that as well. But I would really appreciate the way he has, strategized the things. He has reached the schools first. He has visited those areas. He knew that that's where they need electricity or they have electricity shortage. And the girls, because in Pakistan we have a male dominant society, and women are always, mostly at the deprived end. We are the privileged women, I would say. You and me are the privileged women, but not all women in Pakistan are privileged. So it's very important for women to go to schools and take education. But if the educational facilities that they should have are not enough, then they would be highly discouraged. So electricity in an area like Sindh, or in an area like remote areas like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, some of the areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa which are really remote. If they don't have light sitting in the classroom, how would they study? If they don't have fan sitting in a hot weather, how would they study? So to sort this out, he has enabled getting funds through donations and various other ways, legal ways, obviously. He collected the funds and he came up with the solar panels, yeah, and he implemented those solar panels on the schools, on the rooftops of those schools. And now those schools have their own independent energy systems, and they are running very efficiently at the same time.
Yeah,
So I think this is one initiative.
project. I know of the project through you as well because you
Yeah,
share it and talk about it. So
yeah,
and I
yeah,
really like the concept as well.
yeah,
So it's wonderful, and
yeah,
also it's wonderful how when it comes to giving examples, we always quote our friends, people we know, individuals, smaller
yeah.
organizations. It's not really any big donor agency project that we
Yes,
quote. So we read about it a lot, but we always
exactly,
quote people actions and smaller group actions that that are trying to do the little that they can, and it is going a long
exactly,
way. That because it
exactly,
is being created in a small school somewhere remote, you can see the impact and
exactly,
you really feel happy.
exactly.
um
So, yeah,
it,
I would just I would just like to relate this back to what we were just discussing, that the funding agencies have their own vested interests. They do not have interest in what we need. So only the people who live with us, along with us, uh, they are the ones, or we are the ones who know what we need. And it is one of us always, one of the community members, or one of the people out of us who would just take a lead and start setting up a system where he can facilitate whatever that is required.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah,
And Anusha, anything else you want to share before we kind of wrap up?
yeah. What should I share?
even even anything fun, anything interesting, any story in your personal life, some actions that you've taken that you're proud of, something that you missed.
um, I would say, after having lived abroad for quite some time and studied there, and then coming back to Pakistan, um, I would say that there is a lot that I want to be doing in my own country. And I think many of us, who have this patriotism inside their hearts, I would say we all want to do a lot for our country. But at the same time, we feel that our hands are tied up and we don't get the right facilitation, we don't get the right access, or we get a lot of discouragement from the people who should not be discouraging us. For example, if a director of an environmental protection agency is telling a fresh graduate coming back to Pakistan that why did you even come back here, it's so awkward, it's so demotivating, to an extent that he even told me that this you are not going to find any job absolutely in Pakistan for the next 1 year, and after that you will be so discouraged that you will yourself decide that you will go back. But Alhamdulillah, I already had a job within the first 5 or 6 months, and that was so good that I stick to it for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I think I have this advice for the people, coming into this sector, that if you want to work in the sustainability sector, in the climate change sector, or environment sector, Do not rely upon the government. Do not rely upon somebody is going to do hand holding for you. You have to be the pioneer of change. You have to, just like your page is saying, e-Karwan, you have to be the e-Karwan. You have
Yeah.
to do it yourself. You have to be the trend setter and not a follower.
Yeah.
So self motivation, your self internal instinct is very important to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And then the next phase comes around the strategy. You need to have the right mindset. You need to incapacitate yourself with the skills, with the education, qualifications, and the strategies that could facilitate the idea that's there in your mind. If Allama Iqbal had the thought of creating Pakistan, Quaid-e-Azam had the strategy to do it.
Yeah.
Just bearing the thought of having Pakistan did not create Pakistan. Having the right strategy of creating Pakistan, having the right motivation, right direction, and right way of tackling these certain situations, strategized, strategized by Quaid-e-Azam, made us to have Pakistan. So if we have a sustainability drive in Pakistan, if we want to make Pakistan green and clean, you know, and there are so many different slogans that we have right now: save a watt and save a lot.
Yeah.
And yes, I would talk. We haven't spoken much about energy efficiency and energy conservation. I would say very little. There are very little things which matter. For example, if I leave a room, I turn off my AC, I'll turn off my heater, my lights, my fans. You know, if I cannot do that, I think I should at least have sensors in my room which should do them for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I should have this thing built into my moral duty of doing it. Because if I'm wasting my energy, there is some, far away village where there is absolutely no electricity, or they end up not having electricity because I'm wasting that electricity.
Yeah.
It is very interesting to know, and I just saw that my mom has also joined this, and she's going to kill me after this because I'm going to talk about her now. So at my home, since I got back from Sweden, I have this constant ruffle going on between me and my mom, that every time we are leaving house, or even if we are sitting in one room, I would tend to go and turn off all the extra lights around my house. And she would go around and start turning on all the lights around the house.
Well, it's
So,
my mother.
so
Same with my mother. She's like, at least have one light on. We're not living in a grave. We're living in a house. It's like, no, you don't need it
I
in the other room.
swear.
I might go to the other room. It's like, no, when you go, you know where the switch is. We also fight on
Exactly. So it is so important to change this mindset. I don't know, somehow, one way or the other. I was even asking my mom that, are you scared of the ghosts? Do we have any kind of ghosts in our home?
I
So,
am
so
from undergrad. So my mother always wanted the kitchen lights to be on. And whenever I saw it on, like going to the toilet or something, that I would just go and switch it off. And she used to say, who is this person who switches off the light of my kitchen where I have to go and be all the day? It's like, I don't know. You were not there when I was passing by, so I switched it off. I have this, I also have this one conflicting terrain with my mother as well. And I'm glad to know I'm not the only one.
absolutely, absolutely. So I think, Dr. Fazia, it is very, very important that we need to, courtesy begins at home. So
Exactly.
if we are successful in changing the mindsets of our mothers, then only
Then,
we can become the drivers of change.
so the campaign that I've started in my village of not using plastic bags. So my mother, like I tell her that no matter who else uses plastic bags, you are not going to use plastic bags. And that's the deal.
Yeah.
So one time my mother forgot to take the bag with her, and then she brought in a plastic bag, and then she tells the shopkeeper, Fozia is going to kill me. And I was like,
I know. And I have
like my
Yeah,
mom is
but
going to
what I have done at my home is I have deliberately, folded certain biodegradable bags and kept them in my car's trunk, in my dad's car. And I'm like, you guys are always going to have them there whenever you go for grocery shopping or something like that. And no polythene bags are coming to our home. So it's
exactly.
very important. I think it's very, very important. So
I I give all of these lectures, and there are tens and thousands of them where I go and say you should do this and you should do that, and it starts with individual actions, and then of course policies, strategies,
Yes.
implementations matter. But what also matters is, are we as individuals ready to take that action? And
Yeah.
so I tell my parents, if you guys don't do it at home, how am I going to go and speak to other people? Because I know that we've come back from the city in the village. They're
Exactly.
the most consumeristic family in the village, in a sense,
Exactly.
buying things from the city. We are always bringing more. So if we are setting that example, then how can I go and tell my villagers to continue to live the minimal life that they have? So I think a lot of it comes down really to action at home, and
I know.
action for, I think, before you take bigger actions, like what can you do for your
Exactly.
small,
Exactly.
and it.
But I think overall, the global, according to the global trends, I think there are many more people who are sensitized about sustainability and, having better habits of environmentalism right now. People are getting conscious, and even in even in the developing countries, I would say that there are many people now who are conscious now that what should we do and what should we not do. It's only the policy, it's only the regulation, the regulatory framework, which should come into practice, just so that everybody do it as an obligation. They just don't do it as a moral duty, they do it as an obligation as well. And even those who are not, for example, in the ongoing corona situation, whenever we get to hear that now the SOPs have to be done, just like I was listening to the news in the morning that in Islamabad and Pindi, now police is going to be sitting at the back and the army is going to take a lead,
Yeah.
so that these SOPs could be implemented. So when army is coming up, everybody is going to do that. So this is how we, it's unfortunate that we everybody is not taking it as a moral duty, but even if we have to do it, like, forcefully, we should do it forcefully, because this is need of the hour.
Exactly.
In terms of energy, again, I would say in Pakistan we had been facing humongous energy crisis, and now when we are talking about the captive power plants that Nika is also working on a lot. Captive power plants, yes, they are good for us, but at the same time they are very expensive for us also. Nobody has a clue how much tax we are paying along with the electricity bill, just so that we can have these captive power plants that we have borrowed, we have rented out from another country. You know, this is not what we need. If we become energy efficient on our own, we will never need these captive power plants, and then we will not be paying all these taxes that we are paying for no reason. We are already getting poor, and we should not do certain things which should make us more poor.
Yeah.
So I think this is the takeaway from our today's talk, that everybody should be responsible, should become a responsible citizen, and start the sustainability derive from your own self first, and then take it forward.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for summarizing everything. Thank you for, giving a lot of examples from personal life as well, and sharing your journey. And I hope people who listen to this later will benefit from it. If they have questions, I'll make sure that I pass them on to you, and we can also answer them. Some of your friends have joined, and they're saying that you're a champ and they're proud of you, etc., etc. So I also wanted to bring it to the record, because these comments will go away when the live is gone. Anusha, because some people have just joined us, and also because I want you to come back to the topic and kind of summarize the entire conversation we had on the issues with scaling up Climate Adaptation Fund. Would you like to give a summary and then formally end it?
Yeah. As we just I would just summarize this talk, that we were talking about the climate change adaptation funding that's coming to Pakistan. Um, uh, just giving it like last few bullets. The first thing first is this, that the biggest question that I have is, do we need funding? Do we need adaptation funding? A funding that's coming to any developing country is making the country dependent upon it. And if we keep getting dependent upon the funding that we are receiving as an aid, we will never become self-sufficient. We will never change our attitude. We will never try to do anything on our own. So this is the first question. Do we need to have the adaptation funding or not? There are so many things that we can do our own to adapt. You know, if you go to the field where there are areas which have been flood hit, the communities which live around those areas, the people of those areas actually end up saying that we already know how to deal with this. We already know how to adapt here. We already know that how to, face this flood situation whenever it comes. But the only thing is this, that we don't have the access to the right people who can facilitate us, either in terms of finances, either in terms of technology, or in terms of, just a vocational training. I would say just vocational trainings would do. If the people are just told that what are the precautionary measures or what are the immediate, emergency measures that you can take when you are faced by a flood. So this is one factor. The second aspect is this, that whatever the funding that we are receiving, the first thing that came to my mind when I began with my research was this: is the funding going to corruption? Is it the corruption that's leading the funding to go into the wrong direction or not reach the grassroots level? The answer that I surprisingly received everywhere was no. It's not the corruption. All the funds that which are being received in Pakistan are not actually being corrupted, but they are just being mismanaged. There is no proper management of those funds. They are not going into the right directions because the people who are sending those funds out are not sending those funds in the areas or in the places or towards the needs of the situations where these funds are required. If, for example, we need building of infrastructure, we are probably investing those funds. Sorry to say, but we are investing those funds in the tree tsunami project. Yes, we can do a billion tree tsunami project, but how much does a tree cost? Maybe 100, 200. We can even do that with funds that we can get as donations.
Yeah.
If Shaukat Khanum Hospital is built, it is built with donations. It was never built with any funds which were received for the government's sake, right? So if you want to bring a tsunami of trees, you can just motivate the individuals to plant a tree, and every other individual would just do that. You just, take a sapling, just slash a sapling from another tree and plant it right away on the same spot. You would not have to invest any money on that. That money could have gone towards infrastructure development, where there is climate change happening going on, where we have floods, where we have we don't have electricity, where where the people are dying of heat or the people are dying of cold, where we need to have proper shelter systems for those people so that they can survive those weather conditions. So it is just the mismanagement of funds. This is the other aspect. And then the third aspect is the policy. So if the policy is the one which is exactly talking about what we need, then only the international donors would have their trust rebuilt into the government system, and the government and the people of Pakistan as a nation have the trust built in the government as well. So the government lacks the trust factor, and the government has to really work on their policies to regain the trust which they have lost over time, or to the international funding agencies as well as to the inhabitants of Pakistan. And the fourth and the last part is the technology. So we have the technology. Again, we have the technology. We are nothing behind the developed nations. But the only thing is this, that where to use that technology. We receive things. We have the electrical vehicles coming to Pakistan right now. And we know that they are the most energy efficient vehicles that we have, and they do not use fossil fuels or anything, but they are just the luxury cars right now. We need to have EVs implemented into the buildings, in bulldozers, for example, or agriculture trucks. They need to become energy efficient first, because they are more polluting than any other transport system that we have in Pakistan. So these are the 4 areas, I think, which summarize the talk that we had today.
Thank you so much for doing all the job that actually had to be mine. to summarize it. So thank you for giving your time for this conversation. And there's one thing that I will always say at the end of all the conversations, and that is thank you for joining the Karwa. And just so you know, like this page, all of us are here. You can use it for your own events as well. And you're always welcome to come back and speak to us, even if you want to do something along your own work. Because we do think that all we need to do is to come together to create those platforms where same voices or different voices can be projected over and over again. People are reminded of doing those basic things like not using a single-use product or a plastic product, etc. And thank you for in between motivating the younger generation to stay strong and resilient. Just like climate change, we also have to be resilient to the attitude that we have to face in Pakistan. So staying positive. Absolutely. And not giving up. Like, thank you for also bringing that up. And thank you for a wonderful talk, Anusha. Any goodbye thoughts? I mean, it's a thank you from the bottom of my heart, but anything you want to say, and then I'll end this.
Thank you so much, Fazia. And, I just love talking today. And I think we can have so many different topics around sustainability that we can discuss for later on as well. But this is a great initiative that you have with e-Karwan. And I wish you all the best for taking it further. And I would suggest you should start a YouTube channel as well, where you should put all these interviews or discussions. And these should become very useful for the people, for your students, for many educational institutions, because I think there is a lot that I have discussed, and I suppose there were previously discussed as well in upcoming discussions as well, when we talk about our researchers. And we talk about our hands-on experiences, and those experiences are something which the people or the students who are currently working on these areas, they need these things, they need these insights. So I think that's my suggestion to you, and I wish you a lot of luck and all the best in taking it forward.
I love doing it, and that's why I continue to do it. A lot of people ask me not to do it as well. They're like, "Isme kya rakha hai? Why are you doing this? Just focus on your work." And I'm like, "No, I've been doing this all my life. I want to invest a little bit of time in this."
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for encouraging.
Just don't listen to anybody saying a no to any good thing. This should be the attitude, and I am keeping myself up with this attitude for a very long time.
Yes,
because every good every good effort starts with a no. So whenever you think about a crazy idea, everybody is like no. So just stick to your crazy ideas and keep doing it.
Wonderful. Thank you for encouraging e-Karwan, and we hope to see more of you. Hope that you will see more of us in future as well.
Inshallah.
And thank you to the audience who joined us and complimented Anusha and the work, and I hope that you will catch up later as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Bye. Thank you, all my friends, my colleagues, some of my relatives also, and my mom for bearing with all the controversial discussion that I had today. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.